The Manson Family, One Crime, Five Killers. August 1969. Los Angeles. Over 2 nights, 7 people are slaughtered. A pregnant actress. A wealthy older couple. Words written in blood on the walls. This isn't the story of one killer. It's one crime, carried out by 5 very different people. A mastermind who never laid a hand on a single victim, yet bore the most responsibility. And 4 followers who would do anything for him. Today we go through their stories one by one, how a failed musician built a cult, and how his 4 followers carried out Hollywood's darkest night. This is the Manson family murders, and its 5 faces. 1. Charles Manson, the mastermind. Charles Manson's childhood was broken from the start. Born to a teenage mother with no stability of her own, he grew up bouncing between foster homes and juvenile detention. Theft, fraud, pimping. Manson's criminal record started in the 1950s. Most of his early adult life was spent in and out of prison. When he got out in 1967, San Francisco was in the middle of the Summer of Love. The hippie movement was at its peak, free love, drugs, rebellion against the establishment. It was the perfect opening for Manson. He picked up a guitar, styled himself as a failed musician who wanted to be the next Beatles, and started drifting around California, drawing in young, lost, often runaway girls. His method was psychological manipulation, refined to a science. Every new follower got love and acceptance first, things most of these kids had never had at home. Then control crept in slowly, drugs, group sex, and constant family sessions where he drilled in his philosophy, which he called Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter was Manson's apocalyptic theory. He believed a race war was coming where black Americans would wipe out the white population, after which Manson and his family would emerge from hiding to rule the world. The theory made no logical sense on its own, but his followers, already isolated and conditioned, believed it completely. Manson based his operation at Spahn Ranch, an old movie set where the family lived. There, he had total control: who ate what, who slept with whom, who left the property. Manson decided everything. In August 1969, Manson ordered a group of his followers to a specific house in Hollywood and told them to kill everyone inside, so it would look like the work of black militants and kickstart Helter Skelter. Manson himself never went that night. He gave the order, and his family carried it out. At trial, Manson claimed innocence. He said he never killed anyone himself. Legally, that was true. But prosecutors proved his control was so complete that everything he said functioned as a command. He was convicted of conspiracy and murder. He received the death penalty, later commuted to life imprisonment when California temporarily suspended capital punishment. Manson stayed in prison until 2017, when he died of natural causes. But the family, who actually carried out the killings, their stories were just beginning. That's the mastermind. Now, the man who took Manson's orders literally and struck the first blows inside that Hollywood house, Tex Watson. 2. Tex Watson, the executioner. Charles Tex Watson came from a middle-class Texas family, no troubled childhood, no criminal past. He went to college, played football, and moved to California to build a normal life. But California's drug culture pulled him in, and in 1968 he met Manson. Watson was tall, strong, and physically imposing, exactly what Manson wanted in an enforcer. He quickly became Manson's most trusted follower, rising into a senior position within the family. On the night of August 9, 1969, Manson sent Watson, along with 3 female followers, to 10050 Cielo Drive. The house belonged to actress Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant at the time. Manson's actual target was the house's previous tenant, a music industry figure he held a grudge against, but that man had already moved out, and Tate and her friends now lived there instead. Watson led the group. They cut the property's phone lines, jumped the gate, and broke in. One by one, they killed everyone inside, including Tate, with brutal, repeated stabbing. It was violent enough to shock even hardened investigators. Dozens of stab wounds, the word pig written in blood on the walls. The next night, Watson led again, this time at the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, an ordinary business couple with no connection to Manson or any message. They were random targets, chosen only to keep the Helter Skelter narrative going. When arrests began, Watson fled to Texas to his parents' home. He fought extradition for nearly a year, claiming he was mentally unfit for trial. Eventually he was brought back to California. His defense was simple. He argued he was so deep in drugs and psychological conditioning that he had no real awareness of what he was doing. The jury didn't buy it. He was convicted of first-degree murder on 7 counts and sentenced to death, later commuted to life. In prison, Watson became a born-again Christian, was ordained as a minister, and has attended decades of parole hearings, denied every time. He remains in a California prison today, holding more convictions than anyone else in the case. Watson wasn't alone at Cielo Drive. With him was a young woman whose later bragging in jail is the reason the entire case got solved, Susan Atkins. 3. Susan Atkins, the one who talked. Susan Atkins came from a dysfunctional California family, left home as a teenager, and found herself adrift in San Francisco's hippie scene. In 1967 she met Manson and became a follower almost immediately. He renamed her Sadie Mae Glutz, standard practice in the cult to erase a follower's old identity. Atkins was one of the family's most devoted members. She was already involved in an earlier killing, the murder of music teacher Gary Hinman, tied to a drug money dispute within the family. That case matters because it proves the family had already turned to violence before the Tate LaBianca murders. On the night of August 9, Atkins was part of the Cielo Drive group. When Sharon Tate begged for her life, saying she was pregnant and asking to let the baby live, Atkins showed no mercy. She stabbed Tate and later admitted she dipped her finger in Tate's blood to write, "Pig," on the front door. Up to this point, it's a standard family member story. But Atkins cracked the case wide open in a way no one expected. While in jail on unrelated charges from the Hinman murder, she openly bragged to her cellmates about what she'd done at the Tate house. She gave details only an insider could know. Those cellmates reported it to police. That was the break investigators needed. Up to that point they had no solid lead connecting anyone to the Tate LaBianca murders. Atkins's jailhouse confession was the first thread that tied the Manson family to the crimes. She also gave detailed testimony to a grand jury, which helped prosecutors build their entire case. But by the time the actual trial began, she withdrew her testimony and refused to cooperate, likely under pressure from Manson or other family members. At trial, Atkins was found guilty and sentenced to death, later commuted to life. In prison she described herself as born again and repeatedly sought parole, denied every time. She died in prison of brain cancer in 2009, the first Manson family member to die. Atkins played her part at the Tate house. But the following night, at the LaBianca house, another woman was present, one whose story became a decades-long fight with the parole system, Patricia Krenwinkel. 4. Patricia Krenwinkel, the longest-serving. Patricia Krenwinkel came from an ordinary middle-class background, college, a job at an insurance company. In 1967 she met Manson and abandoned her stable life to join him almost immediately. Manson renamed her Katie. Krenwinkel was one of the family's most loyal, longest-standing members. She was also involved at Cielo Drive. She chased down victim Abigail Folger as she tried to flee and stabbed her repeatedly. But Krenwinkel's defining role came the following night, at the LaBianca house. There, she stabbed Rosemary LaBianca with a carving fork and a knife, and wrote "Death to Pigs" and a deliberately misspelled "Helter Skelter" on the walls in blood, meant to make investigators believe it was a racially motivated gang killing, exactly as Manson intended. After the arrests, Krenwinkel fled and hid for several months before being caught and extradited. At trial she too received the death penalty, later commuted to life. From here, her story diverges from the others. She has now spent over 50 years in prison and applied for parole repeatedly. Each time she was denied,